Hello, I'm Shaun Pattinson and I'm Professor of Medical Law and Ethics at Durham University. What you're going to see in a minute is an edited video of students engaged in ethics activity as part of a wider project on understanding human cloning and mitochondrial donation. In order for this ethics activity to work, we needed a scenario for them to think about that wasn't connected to either human cloning or mitochondrial donation. So what we did is we used a thought experiment known as the trolley problem, which was first published by Philip Buffott in 1967. And we modified that problem to work for this session. So our variant we've called the runaway train. And this requires you to imagine. Imagine that, if you look at the slide in front of you, you will see this. Imagine that you're standing on a bridge over two narrow ravines. At the bottom of each ravine is a railway line. There's a train heading towards you, and it's a runaway train. So it's running very fast and it can't brake. If it continues along its railway line, it will head into the ravine in which there are 5 people, and all 5 will be killed. But you have a lever in front of you on this bridge, and if you pull this lever, the train will be diverted into the other ravine and will kill 1 person. So this is your choice. You either pull the lever and divert the train and 1 person will die, or you do not pull the lever, in which case the train will kill 5 people. And this is the thought experiment that we gave the students to think about. But as many of you will have already recognized, it doesn't actually tell you much about the underlying moral values, ethical view being brought to bear on this problem, simply knowing whether somebody's going to pull the lever or not. There could be many reasons why you might pull the lever or might not. You might decide to pull the lever because you actually think that saving 5 lives is more important than 1. Or you may decide to pull the lever because you think that acting is better than non-acting, inaction. Or, conversely, you may decide not to pull the lever because you think that 1 life is just as important as 5. Or because you think that it's better not to act in this situation. Now, for that reason, we also asked the students a further question. We gave them these 5 value statements, and these should now be on your screen. And we asked which of these 5 value statements most closely reflects their values. And once they've selected those 5 value statements, we then used the fact that we'd modified this thought experiment. Because remember, you're standing on top of the bridge. So we then said to the students, well, because you're on this bridge, you can actually talk, you can shout down to those in the ravines. So imagine that you were given an additional piece of information. Would you pull the lever or not? So on your screen now, you should see 6, A to F, 6 different situations. So first of all, the students were asked, well, what if the person in the second ravine asked you to divert the train to avoid killing the 5 in the first ravine? So here, the person in that second ravine is effectively consenting to you pulling the lever. Do you pull the lever or don't you? Well then, in B, the alternative situation, we said, imagine something different. Imagine that it's the 5 in the first ravine ask you not to divert the train to the second ravine. So the 5 have actually consented to you doing nothing, to you not pulling the lever. Do you pull the lever? The third is situation C. What if instead of all that, the 5 people in the first ravine are convicted criminals, and the person in the second ravine is a world-famous cancer specialist on the verge of a breakthrough? So if you don't pull the lever, 5 criminals will die. If you do, you kill the one person but he's on the verge of potentially curing or helping to cure cancer. Do you pull the lever now? And then in situation D, we reverse those positions. So now the 5 people in the first ravine are a team of world-famous cancer specialists on the verge of a breakthrough. And the person in the second ravine is a criminal. So if you don't pull the lever, the potential cure for cancer dies with those 5 people. Do you pull the lever? And then we have 2 more. E, the 5 in the first ravine are in a permanent vegetative state, they are so brain damaged that they're thought to be permanently incapable of awareness and understanding the world. They're thought to be permanently unconscious. But the person in the second ravine is not brain damaged. So if the train is heading towards 5 people who are severely brain damaged, do you pull the lever and kill the one person who's not brain damaged? And then in the final situation, F, the 5 people in the first ravine are not brain damaged. But this time, if you pull the lever, the train will be diverted to a person who is in a permanent vegetative state, who is so severely brain damaged that he or she will never gain awareness. Now, the purpose of all these scenarios is to get students reflecting upon their moral values and to apply different types of moral theory to understand how they operate. Before you watch this video, the rest of this video, you might want to consider how you would decide whether you're going to pull the lever or not, and on what basis. Okay, the purpose of this activity is to examine what it means to have values and whether values are objective or relative and what it would mean if they were objective. So, the central question that I want to look at in this session is morality objective and what would it mean if morality were objective? If morality isn't objective, that must mean that morality is a matter of opinion, that all moral values are equally valid and equally invalid. And this is a central debate. But one easy mistake to make is to confuse disagreement and differences in views with the view that all those views are equal. Those things don't follow. The fact that people disagree doesn't imply that everybody is right. It's still possible for people to disagree and for some of them to be wrong. The question that we need to look at is what that would mean if that were the case in morality. Because when we're dealing with mathematics, we're used to the idea that if we do a mathematical problem, if we add 1 plus 1 and we get 5, it's not just a matter of opinion whether that's right or not. Yeah. If we're disagreeing over whether the Earth is flat or spherical, we're used to recognizing that it's not just a matter of opinion whether the Earth is flat or spherical. Yeah? Well, what happens with morality? Well, one view is that morality is actually relative, that moral views are all on a par with regard to their truth or rationality. In other words, no moral views are more true or more rational than any others. They're all equal. So faced with a choice between, say, Hitler or Gandhi, there's no objective reason to choose either way. The other view is that morality is objective. Not all moral views are on a par. Some are better than others. Some are more true or more rational than others. Faced with the choice between Hitler and Gandhi, at least one of them is wrong. Maybe both of them are, but at least one of them would be if you're a moral objectivist. Do you all follow that? Well, the difficulty with moral objectivism, to understand it, is it's often confused. Moral objectivism is not the claim that all moral answers are easy, that all moral problems are, the solution to them is self-evident. It's merely the claim that there are answers. If you were to take a moral objectivist perspective, and I suspect that most of you coming into this room, not all, but most of you will hold two contradictory views. Most of you will be inclined to the view that morality is relative, but also think that some things are absolutely wrong. If you think that morality is relative, for example, ask yourself whether torturing a small child to death for mere pleasure is a matter of opinion or not. If you think that it's not, then you've just contradicted yourself. But, say for the sake of argument that we were prepared to countenance the possibility that morality is subjective, that would still raise one big question, would it not? How? How do we choose between different moral views? If morality is something on which I could be wrong as an individual, how? Well, there's 5 groups of theories which tell us, or claim to tell us, what would be objectively right. And I'm going to go through the first 4 in detail in a minute. The 5th is a miscellaneous category. It's those who hold that morality is objective, but don't hold to 1, 2, 3, or 4. They think that morality is objective, but it has elements of the others. So let me start with the utilitarian position. The most famous utilitarian is Jeremy Bentham, and this is a quote from Jeremy Bentham. The greatest happiness of the greatest number is the foundation of morals and legislation. Utilitarians think that morality is objective, and there is a supreme principle of morality, and that's the principle of utility. And Jeremy Bentham and a modern-day theorist called Peter Singer think that what this means is that we should seek to maximize the satisfaction of preferences. So we should maximize, as Bentham would put it, pleasure over pain. We should maximize the satisfaction of preferences over dissatisfied preferences. Now, because they hold this, not all humans, from a utilitarian perspective, count equally. Because to count at all, you need to be able to experience pain or pleasure. And if you're able to reflect upon your pain and pleasure, you're able to suffer to a higher level. So to count at all, you need to be able to experience pain and pleasure. And if you can think about your pain and pleasure and suffer in a more severe way, then you count for even more. But what utilitarians do is add up different interests. Now imagine that I've got a choice. I either tickle everybody in this room against their will, yeah, or I cut off the tip of somebody's finger. What a utilitarian would do would add up all the dissatisfaction of being tickled against your will and weigh it against the dissatisfaction of having the tip of your finger cut off to determine what's right or wrong. So different people's interests can be added. Now, you filled in 2 forms. One was on science and the other one was on the runaway train problem. When you filled in those forms, if you ticked one of these boxes, what you ticked was consistent with being a utilitarian. It is better to save many lives than one. Human cloning and mitochondrial donation should maximize benefit to the largest number of people possible. 5 lives are more important than 1. So a utilitarian would tick those boxes. An alternative to utilitarianism is the duty-based approach. According to this view, we have duties to protect the most important interests of individuals. And so all humans have equal interests, either from the moment they were conceived, which is what John Guillaume would argue, or from the moment that they are capable of reasoning, which is what Immanuel Kant would argue. So John Guillaume says that we must never intentionally kill an innocent human being, even with his or her consent. And that's because, for him, the interest in life is more important than other interests, including any interest that we might have in giving up our lives. So what matters to a duty-based theorist is the weight that we give to an interest. The interests of different individuals cannot be added together. So when filling out the questionnaires, the boxes that a duty-based theorist, or those who agree with the duty-based approach, would have ticked are these. They would have ticked the box saying, saving one life is just as important as saving many lives. And the box which says that human cloning and mitochondrial donation should be directed towards the most severe conditions, even if only suffered by a small number of people. And the box which says that one life is just as important as 5 lives. Because those boxes capture the values which all duty-based theorists agree on. But there's another type of view you can take, which agrees with most things that the duty-based theorist would say, but has one crucial difference, and that's over the value given to consent. A theorist, as an example, is Alan Worth. He says, I have rights to freedom and well-being, and by rights, he means that you're owed duties and you can release people from those duties. So, a rights-based theorist would hold that we have rights which impose duties on others, but we can release others from those duties. So if I have a right to life, I can release you from that duty to protect my life. So I can commit suicide or I can consent to you killing me. Unless I'm violating the rights of others, that's a permissible action. Not all humans count equally. Those who count the most are those who are able to exercise rights, those who are able to consent. And unlike utilitarians, but like duty-based theories, you can't add up different people. So, the people who don't want to be tickled, the right not to be tickled, cannot be added up so that 20 so rights not to be tickled outweigh a right not to lose part of your finger. It doesn't work that way. The right not to lose part of your finger is a stronger right and will outweigh the right not to be tickled, even if there's a million people who'd have to be tickled. Does that make sense? So you tick the same boxes on the form if you had this view as you would for the duty-based view. Because your essential disagreement with the duty-based view is over whether you can consent to anything. But you might take the view, within moral objectivism, you might hold that morality is objective, but it's not about what you do, it's a matter about what your character is, what your motive is, what your intention is. So you think that what's wrong with utilitarianism, duty-based views and rights-based views is they're focused on action, they're focused on what you do or do not do, and they're missing the point according to a virtue-based view. Aristotle is an example. When he says the human good turns out to be the soul's activity that expresses virtue, what he's arguing is that we're consistent with a virtue-based view. What matters is that scientists have virtuous motives. Human cloning and mitochondrial donation should only be used for where the intention and motivation is good. And what matters is not what I do, but whether I'm virtuous. Okay. So that's a quick run through 4 major groups of positions that could be taken with regard to within moral objectivism. As I've said, those 4 are not the only. There's another category that thinks moral objectivism is right, but doesn't want to support any one of these 4, wants bits of all of them. Yeah. And there's another position which says that morality simply isn't objective. There's no objective truth or rationality to any claim at all made within morality. It's just a matter of opinion. Okay. Now, in order to understand these positions, Benedict's divided you into groups. We're going to give each of those groups a crib sheet, and your group is going to represent one of those 4 positions. And when we've done that, we're then going to do the thought experiment again. And we're going to ask you to look through all of these 6 statements and ask whether your position would pull the lever or not. Do you want to add to that? Or as I pull these out, hand these out.
No, I don't think so. All you have to decide in your groups is basically would you or wouldn't you pull the lever in each of these scenarios, okay, based on your particular ethical viewpoint that you've been assigned. So sometimes it might be possible that your theory would lead you to put a tick in both boxes for one of the options. Okay, so you have to discuss that amongst your groups, decide what you would do, and then present it back to the rest of us what you think that particular ethical viewpoint would do in that scenario. And you've got about 10 minutes to do that, so you have to think fairly quickly and debate fairly hard. Okay, so.
You get self-facts you can shoot each other. Technology. It would save the 5 over the 1 if we're all equal.
Well, we see the 1 over the 5 in the vegetative state because they'd be experience more pleasure.
Look at the wrong mind.
Cheers.
Who wants to be described?
Go for it.
The person in second would be asked to divert the train to avoid killing the 5 people in the first. So they'd
Pull it and save the 5
save the
people.
5. 5 people in the first ravine ask you not to divert the train.
They're asking you to kill them.
Yeah. 5 people are criminals, and the one person is the cancer specialist, so
They wouldn't
they
pull
would
it to let them cancel.
save. The way around.
Would they say it was more virtuous to kill one person rather than fight, or would it be more virtuous to respect their opinion and just do it?
Respect opinion, I think.
Can you name it virtue? Just name it virtue. Do you know what you mean by virtue? Courage, perseverance, fortitude, even temper, not getting angry in the right situation. So it's kind of, Aristotle sees it, it's kind of like being between two extremes. You can be foolhardy, right? If you're too courageous, you're foolhardy, you're stupid. You're like those people on Jackass, you know, doing stupid stuff. Or you're cowardly, okay? Being pretty courageous is right in the middle. So that's virtue. It's having a character that's really, really well formed. Okay? So what you do kind of affects who you are. So it isn't just about what kind of person you are. What you do also forms your character. So if you join the army, for example, it may be that would enable you to become more courageous. Then again, if you join the SAS, maybe it causes you to become too courageous, to become foolhardy. Right?
Which is the utilitarian group? You're over here, yeah? So, have you managed to get through all 6 of these?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk us through what you think. Would a utilitarian pull the lever in situation A, where the person in the second ravine asks you to divert the train to avoid killing the 5 in the first ravine?
Yeah, we said that they would pull the lever because 5 lives are more important than 1 in this case. And then for the second one, we've said both, which I'm not really sure what someone else can explain.
Right, we've said both in this case because it said the interests of different individuals can be added together. These 5 people have asked not to divert the train, so really these 5 people have asked to die. Whilst this one person hasn't expressed a preference. So you've got 5 lots of death wishes and 1. You see what I mean? And then the interests added together. So yeah, 5 lives are more important than 1. So from one point of view, you shouldn't kill the five people and kill the other person. But from the other point of view, you've added the interests of the suicidal people together, and you've got more. Yeah.
Excellent. So your starting point is what you're trying to do is maximise the satisfaction of preferences. So a utilitarian would generally pull the lever. So when you look at these factors, you're asking where this factor makes a difference. So with regard to the first one, you've said, well, you'll still pull the lever because you're actually maximising more preferences now because they're agreeing with that decision. With the second one, you're saying, well, this could go both ways. Is that right? Okay, great. Move on to the C.
We said they wouldn't pull the lever because since not all humans are equal, presumably the cancer specialist on the verge of a major breakthrough has more worth than the convicted criminals. So, yeah.
D.
D. I'm gonna do this one. Can't do this. We said that he would pull the lever because 5 people are better than 1. They're like cancer specialists. He's like criminals, so it just makes sense.
Okay, so the difficulty you've got now is that somebody who's on the verge of a major breakthrough for cancer could potentially save thousands of lives, and those now need to be weighed in the balance when you're trying to make your decision. So you're now trying to save the world famous cancer specialist because the impact on preference maximisation that could have. Moving on to E and F, what do you think about theirs?
Well, if you add up the value of it sounds harsh, but like vegetative state, like they haven't got a very good quality of life. They're not gonna like a cancer specialist is someone who can contribute something. They're not really going to contribute anything. But the person in the second ravine isn't brain damaged. They have potential to do something else. So we said that we wouldn't pull the lever and let the 5 people die.
Yeah, because a person in a permanent vegetative state is considered to be unable to experience pain. So they don't count at all if they can't experience pain. So their preferences, they don't have any preferences, according to that view. Yeah.
And for F, we've said I would pull the lever because the fact that the first human aren't brain damaged and the second person is, so 5 people are more important than one, the value of their potential compared to no potential.
Yeah, so you would now pull the lever to protect the 5 who are not brain damaged. Yeah. Well, when I did the mapping, I came to the same conclusion as you. Notice that when you chose 2, I also put in brackets because of the effect of other family members who are not part of the equation. Okay, so if I could move on to duty-based. Who's duty-based?
For A, we said considering all lives are equal, then and 1 is just as important as 5. We would pull the lever. Stick to 1 more. We wouldn't pull the lever because we're not killing anyone, we're just letting something happen. And then we said the same for B because, well, the same reason, that we wouldn't be killing anyone, we'd just be letting it happen.
Then for C, we put would not pull the lever because the criminals are not innocent and there's a need to keep innocent human beings alive, whereas there's not for if they're criminals. And then we put we would pull the lever for D because, again, the same reasons, that we're not people being innocent and not being innocent.
So you think you can count for less if you've been convicted of a crime?
Well, in the
innocent state, they decided that he wasn't innocent.
Innocent of what? What? No, the reason I'm asking that question is, does it make a difference what crime it is? Would murder, for example, be different from speeding? Okay. Moving on to E and F.
For E, we put both, because even though there might be like permanent vegetative people, all lives are equal.
We did the same for the last one, for the same reason really. They could do either.
Yeah. When they've got the first 2, I agree with you. The consent doesn't matter when it comes to life. You can't give up your life from a duty-based perspective. So they would still continue not to pull the lever. With regard to the other 2, C and D, when John Keogh talks about innocent, what he's talking about is somebody who's put themselves in that situation, who's, for example, somebody who's running at you with a machine gun. Yeah. He's tried to hold that self-defense would be permissible and the like. And with regard to the final categories, those in a permanent vegetative state, if you will hold that all humans count equally from the point of conception, then it doesn't matter whether somebody's in a vegetative state or not. If you hold that all humans are equal, as Immanuel Kant does, from the point that you think they're capable of being rational, then you can draw a distinction. So there's some differences there within the duty-based view. Let me move on to the rights-based position.
We said that we would pull the lever, so that would mean that you wouldn't be killing the 5 people and that you would be killing the 1 person because they've consented to like diverting the train so that it would kill them and not the 5 people. So they've obviously given their consent, so it's a moral thing. And then for B, we said that we wouldn't pull the lever because the 5 people have asked you not to divert the train, so they've consented to you killing them. So it's a moral action and all lives are not equal under rights-based ethics.
For C, we've said that you would not pull the lever because it says that all people aren't equal, and you'd assume that the cancer specialist is of like a higher worth than the convicted criminals, so you would kill the convicted criminals rather than the cancer specialist. Because 1 life is just as important as 5 lives, so that one would be more of worth.
For D, we said we would
pull the lever because not all humans are equal, and the 5 people have like a bigger contribution, whereas the other person is like a convicted criminal. So because the 5 people are like considered of more worth, you would pull a lever to kill the one person.
In the same for the E and F really, we said for E you wouldn't pull the lever because you'd assume that the people in a permanent vegetative state are of less worth than a normal person, even though it sounds horrible. So then you would kill the people in the permanent vegetative state. And then for F, that you would pull the lever because the people in the permanent vegetative state are on the second ravine instead of the first one.
Excellent. I don't think there's I think I came to the same conclusions. So you all recognise that, like the duty-based position, your default is not to pull the lever, but you would pull the lever where you've got the consent of that one person, and you may pull the lever depending on the type of rights-based position you've got, where the choice is between saving the 5 non-brain damaged or 1 within a permanent vegetative state. You would sacrifice the 1 in that situation. You could, within a rights-based perspective. Yep. Well done. Moving on to virtue-based theory. What do you think?
We weren't all that sure for most of them because we said that it depended on what your virtues were as a person. So we said that for the first one. We said that they may pull the lever if they value courage as a virtue, because you could say that pulling the lever is quite a courageous act. But then again, like, maybe not pulling the lever.
I think that for the majority of them, you would, depending on what virtue you carry, you had yourself, or you wouldn't, depending on your virtue or what. So be courageous and things like that. It depends on your virtues and your values.
Excellent. So the virtue theory is very difficult to apply. It depends on what the virtues are. It's potentially compatible with either action. Within moral objectivism, there are differences of opinion. There's a reason why many philosophers are attracted to utilitarianism, because it's superficially the easiest one to apply. But the real question is, if we can choose between them, on what basis do we choose between them? How do we get there?